Hi everyone, welcome back to the Helen Olivia virtual workshops. My name is Lindsay and I'm going to be leading you through this Christmas Centerpiece class today. So we've got lots of materials and lots of fun, yummy Christmas goodies that we're going to mix in. Let me actually adjust my camera so you can see better. Great. And we've got our gold long and low that we're going to be making our centerpieces in. And then other thing you have is your floral foam. And I'm going to walk you through how to foam your vases properly. We've got our bucket of all of our holiday colors and ingredients. And this should all be listed out on your recipe sheet that you have in your bag as well. I've got some paper towels on hand since we will be wetting this foam, so I might make a mess. So paper towels are good to have on hand for this, or a kitchen towel. And then of course you need your tools. So we've got our clippers, I've got a floral knife, and I have a green stripper with me. You don't need to use this at all. This is just something I have handy. And then you're going to need a larger knife to cut your foam. So a large non-serrated kitchen knife would be great for that. And the other thing that's in your bag are pine cones. So you've got your pine cones, and those will add in last. So you can set those to the side. And we're going to start by foaming our vases. So we're using floral foam, which is like a sponge, and it will hold water. So you're going to have to wet and soak these blocks of foam, and then we're going to cut it down to size. So you're going to want to fill up your kitchen sink or some sort of sink with water. And the trick to these is you want to drop them into water. You don't want to run them underwater. Just how this foam absorbs, it's important for you to actually drop it into water and let it soak from the bottom up. So running it underwater doesn't really fill it with as much water as it needs to stay wet for as long as possible. So I have a bucket of water that I'm going to drop mine in, and then you just have to wait a couple seconds and it'll be all absorbed. So go ahead and submerge your foam blocks. And while you're submerging your foam blocks, you'll see that it kind of moves a little slowly. So while they're absorbing, now would be a great time to organize your buckets. So I'm going to go ahead and unwrap our little Jingle Bell mixed greenery pack that has that cute Jingle Bell wrapping. I'm going to go ahead and unwrap that and cut the bands. This is just going to make it so it's easier and quicker to grab things as we go. And this way with this pack, you can see the variety. And you're probably going to have a little bit of extra greenery today, and that is totally fine. I will show you some tricks to make a little napkin garnish for your Christmas dinner, or drape it along your table. So don't worry about having extra. You'll definitely be able to put it to use on your table. And then once you've pulled your greenery out and you've kind of gotten organized, or at least laid it out for yourself, your foam should be about ready. Now I can kind of see everything a little more clearly with my greens on my table and the flowers in my bucket. So now that my foam is completely wet, we are going to take the first block, and you're not going to have to cut the first block. So the first block will fit right into your vase. So let any excess kind of drip out, and you're going to set that first one right in place, tucked up against one of the sides. So I've got one in place, and then you can kind of see the size that you're going to need for the other block to cut it down. So you're going to take that other block, and I'm not really near a sink, but normally we would be doing this near a sink. And what I kind of do for a trick of measuring it is you can just hold it up so you can see how much you need. Make a little mark, and then that's where you're going to end up cutting. So I'm going to move that up for a second, get that out of the way, and then you're going to cut your foam. And now I've got the right size piece. And you want to make sure that you're standing it up tall. That's how it fits in the vase best. And then it gives you more foam to stick your flowers in when it's up above the vase like that. So if it's sticking out, that's perfect. We're going to cover it up anyway. It's better to have more because it's more of a water source for your flowers. So I've got the perfect piece. So I'm going to shimmy that in next to it. If you didn't get it the perfect size right then, you've got extra foam to use. So if you need to cut off a little piece and shimmy it in the end, that's a great idea. You want it to be tight. So you don't want your foam to move around. Mine are tight right up next to each other. So I don't feel the need to stick in another piece. But if you have a little bit of space, definitely cut a little and shimmy it right in there because you want the floral foam not to move. So I'm going to put that off to the side because I'm not going to use that. And also the floral foam is great for if you have like foraged greens from your yard or something that you want to use, but you don't have anything to kind of keep things in place, or you have like a weirdly shaped vessel that you want to use at home. You can stick that other piece of floral foam and use it in another thing that you own, and then pop some greenery or flowers in that. So definitely try to utilize that if you have a vase that you feel like flowers wouldn't stand upright in. That's the perfect idea. So let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to grab our mini green. So we've got our mini green hydrangea, and just like we do on all of our other arrangements, we're going to start with that. So what we want to do is really build out the shape and cover this edge of the ugly foam. So right away we get that coverage and you won't be able to see it poking through. For using floral foam, you can keep you don't want to cut your stems too short, but you also want to be able to have them short enough where they're sitting on the vase line. So you're cutting them pretty short compared to what we would do for like a 5-inch cylinder. So make sure you're using those sharp angled cuts because you really want it to be able to jab right into the foam. So for your first two, we're going to do them on either end. And then for the other three, we're going to put them around on either side. So first one, you want it to be about, see how that stem is about the length of the vase, but a little bit up from the top. That's perfect. So first one, we're going to stick it right in on the side. You want a little bit of overhang so you get that elongated shape. So as we're going through this, you can really decide what size you want your centerpiece to be. So I've got a little overhang on both sides. And when we're using the greenery especially, you can blow it out on the sides as far as you would like. So really, if you have a larger, longer table and you really want this to make a statement, then we'll blow out the greenery a lot further. You're totally, you have total free reign about what size you kind of want to make this. And you can do it wider as well if you have like a square table or something like that. So that's something to keep in mind as we go. So I put that one on this side. So since we have 5, we're going to do 2 on one side, and then I'm working on a lazy Susan, so I'm able to spin this for you. And I'm going to do 1 in the middle on that side. So we're going to spread them all out and make sure you're doing the shortcuts and then inserting right on the vase line. And make sure you're removing all of those low-lying leaves. You don't want those to be getting in the way of your foam. So that one is in. And make sure you're really sticking it in and it feels secure. You don't want them to go anywhere. Last one we've got, so we're going to do 1 on this other side. And that will just really give us that base of coverage so we can build out from there. So that is the next piece. And now we're going to go in with greenery. So since we've got a lot of different types of greenery, I'm going to go for the this hardier green first. So this is something that can be split up into a bunch of different pieces. Anything that is like bigger, more of a statement, has larger, thicker stems, we want to use that first so it goes in first and creates that coverage. And then the wispier greens can go in later and they will just be like the pretty flowy pieces. So for something like this, I'm going to split this in a bunch of different ways to be able to utilize as many parts of it as possible. So since we are designing in foam, everything doesn't have to be super long. So you can get a lot of pieces out of a long stem like this. So for something like this, I'm going to cut it in half. So I'm going to use this as one piece and then the bottom as another piece. So there you go, first two pieces. And then you're going to strip off any of those low pine needles. You don't want that to stick in the foam. It's going to shred the foam and make a mess. So, and how we're going to kind of start with our greenery is hit at the corners first. So we'll go in at the corners and really get that good coverage at the corners, and then we'll fill in the middle, and then we'll kind of really exaggerate that shape. So see how it's kind of sticking out? It might look a little silly now with just two pieces in, but as you keep going, it is going to fill out perfectly. So do the same thing with the next piece, split it. I'm gonna put one in that corner, one in that corner, and you can kind of angle them down, you can angle them out. I'm kind of angling them straight out and a little bit down just to build that shape out. So I've got this next piece, and I am going to go a little bit more dramatic and give it a little bit of height here. We don't want it too tall so people can still see over it at your dinner table, but a little bit of height looks really nice on these long bows. So just keep adding with this same greenery, and every piece you're just gonna cut, strip those bottom, so the bottom needles, so it's clean like that. And then you're going to make fresh cuts on each piece, and then you're going to add it. And since this is darker green on one side and has that lighter green on the other side, you want to make sure you're mixing it in. So see how I've got the light facing the camera, and then the dark green is now facing. So I'm going to mix it in with the dark green facing that way, so it's kind of all blended. So when you're looking at it from one side, you're not just seeing light green, and then when you're looking at it from the other side, you're not seeing just dark green. So make sure you're mixing that in. And really, this also smells so good. I love the smell of all this stuff, but I do have an allergy to it, so I'm constantly handling with gloves during the holiday season. So we keep adding, and I'll show you guys from this side. And now, since we've got just a few pieces of this left, I am going to utilize it on the sides and in the middle. So we're really just worried about building out that shape. And if you want to kind of step back and assess how it's looking, definitely do that as we're going. So next piece I'm going to stick right in that side, and you want to make sure that it's really getting into that foam, and then it's draping over the side. So a lot of these pieces that are like the perfect V, these are great little pieces. See how short that stem is? These are great for your side, so you can really stick it in and make sure it's going to stay. So we'll do that. We just want to get that coverage around the foam and around the top of the base. So got that, and then I'm doing that same thing on the other side. So draping that greenery right along the lip of the vase, like that. And now I've got a few more pieces, little ones, and then bigger one up here. So I'm going to utilize this whole piece at the top, actually. Or actually, I'll split it. So I'm going to split it right there. So I can use this little guy. So just kind of get creative on how you're splitting these pieces just so you can use as much as possible and reduce our waste. So I've got this big piece, which might look silly to you at the moment. When you're sticking it in the top of your arrangement, you're going to be like, where is she going with this? But just trust me, it will look fabulous at the end. So I'm going to stick that right in the top and then see how we've really gotten that base of greenery. And again, if you have a long table and you really want to blow it out, that's when we're going to do it with this next step. So make everything a little bit longer, keep everything a little bit longer, and you'll have that more statement making size of centerpiece. So I've got these other little guys that I don't want to go to waste. So I'm going to put them around the edge. I'm just filling in any spots that I feel like don't have any coverage near my mini green or near my foam. So on the near the vase where the foam and the vase meet. So I'm just really trying to camouflage that little area. And if anything, while you're going, breaks or looks, or you don't like the look of it or whatever it may be, just adjust it, take it out. Don't use that piece if it's driving you nuts. So just make life easy on yourself. Oh, I've got actually one piece that was hiding under my Lazy Susan. So I'm going to use this last little piece and I'm going to stick these on top. And we're really getting that like gorgeous, flowy centerpiece shape. So then the next thing I'm going to go in with is this greenery. And since it kind of has a natural split right there, that's where I'm going to cut it actually. So I'm going to cut as much of that stem as possible so I can use that as a piece. So this is a perfect smaller piece to go in on the side. And my mini green is actually not liking the spot it's in. I'm actually not going to use that. So, okay, I had to ditch one of my mini green. It gave up on me. I don't think it was a very healthy piece. So I'm going to adjust my other mini green to be in the center there. We'll just roll with the punches. So next thing, next piece, make sure you strip those ends. And I've got one piece here. So we just want to spread it out. So you want a little touch of everything to be evenly placed throughout the arrangement. So you kind of get that true mixed greenery feel. And you make sure when you're sticking in greenery or any of the flowers as we're going, you want to make sure that you're not sticking anything directly across the foam so that it'll pop out. You want to make sure it's really going down into the foam. So I'm going to grab this next piece, strip that bottom down, and then I'm going to use that over here, like so, right there. Then I'm going to go in with this cedar, which I absolutely love, but if you are sensitive to pine or cedar trees, these are little pollinated buddies on the end. So just be mindful that this is gorgeous, but it can make you sensitive to it if you're really sensitive to Christmas greens, which you probably are not if you're doing this workshop. But meanwhile, I'm teaching the class. I love how this looks though. It's the prettiest, drapiest Christmas greenery. And so I'm going to drape those right at the end. So you can't really see it from that side, but I've got this one here. And then I'm going to do this one over in this back corner. So draping that right there. Pretty, and it has such a nice contrast with the other greens. And then I'm going to take this other cedar and add in, and I'm going to blend this up into the top. And same with this, if you can split it, absolutely do. if it's not going to split well or the pieces are too small. So something like this, you can't use. This is too delicate to go into the foam. You're going to need a hardier stem to get into the foam. So don't try to use the little off branches of it. It's just not going to work out in the foam. So you always want like a little hardier piece. So I'm going to take that and then I'm going to use that as well, just not with that. So that and that. So we're always trying to split and use as much as we can and just keep going. So it's getting bigger. You kind of see it coming together. Going to continue to use that cedar and I'm going to split that as well. So I've got that piece and I'm going to put that right there where I've got a big hole. And you're really just covering up the foam and getting that good coverage. And if there's something that you really like in particular and you think that would be perfect for a napkin garnish and basically anything like this that I'm pulling off, these are the perfect size to put on your napkin. So if you've got your little place setting, you've got your napkin in the middle of the plate, and then you just set this little guy down on everyone's plate. It is the cutest little touch for Christmas. Love doing that. So if there's something that you're loving, if you loved the other greenery, pull a few pieces of that and use that. But anything that you might think, you might find pieces on the ground that you can use. So any little guys like that, definitely set them aside and use as napkin garnish. That is the best way to kind of jazz up your table. So now that we've got most of our greenery in, I'm going to go in with this magnolia. So the magnolia is interesting because it does have such a hardy stem and it survives fairly well out of water that you can use a single leaf and insert that into the foam. So I'll show you that and then I'll show you little clusters. This one is kind of a smaller piece. So I'm going to take this top 3, use that. I'm going to use these 2 together, and then I'll show you how to do a single leaf. So with the magnolia, I like to use it more on the corners, and then smaller leaves work well in the middle. You don't want, if you have a giant leaf, you don't really want to just stick it right there because it'll stick up too high. Since it is a lot sturdier than the other greenery, it's not giving that draping look. So I've got pieces right there, but I love the contrast of the brown and with the greenery. So got one piece there, one piece there. And since these do have a little hardy stem, they can just insert right into the foam, but you want to make sure that they're really in there. So it's kind of hard to see, but see how that leaf is right there? Any leaves that are damaged, you don't need to use. And then I've got another single leaf that's perfect. So I'm going to stick that right in the middle. So you can just break those off. Any usable leaves that aren't in a good grouping and just use those solo. So the magnolia is like that final kind of thing that really fills it out because it is so hardy. And you can kind of spray these leaves out towards you to make it a little wider, like how I did on this side. Or you can spray them up if you like it a little taller and a little closer together. So I've got mine kind of angled, so they're a little bit out, but not anything too jarring. So it's not making it super wide. It's just adding a little dimension. So that is the greenery there. And then finally, I have this cedar that's this like little stringier kind. I'm going to use a few pieces of this scattered all around. And with these, since they are wispier, I don't think you should be afraid to go a little more dramatically with the height because these are not giant branches or leaves that are going to block anyone's view. So feel free to kind of spray these up a little more. And honestly, with long and lows, most of the work is greening it up like this. So once we've got it all greened, the flower portion is going to fly right by. So we've got all these pretty wispy pieces. So I'm going to break this stem up into a bunch of different pieces. I'm just trying to utilize as much as possible, as I keep saying, but really, so you can use something like this. If we were designing in water, I would never suggest for you to use a small stem like that, but in foam, you can absolutely do it because it is in the water source as soon as it's inserted in. You don't want anything too short, but you definitely can push the limits a little more than if we were designing in water. So I'm loving this cedar. And make sure when you're stepping back and looking at it, you want to make sure that you're looking at the top of the vase and you're seeing if you have any gaps. And if you have gaps, go ahead and fill them with your little cedar pieces. So got all this. And if you have extra, again, this would be the perfect stuff to drape on your table. If you had like 2 extra pieces that you didn't want to use, though you're more than welcome to use everything in your arrangement. These would be perfect to kind of drape on the outside of your arrangement on the table. Lay them to the side like this with some votive candles in is such a pretty and easy tablescape idea. And people will be very impressed with your hostess or hosting abilities. So just more. I'm a more is more person, so I'm going to use a lot of this and really extend out on the ends as well. So why not go a little heavy there? Pretty. And then since I added that one, I'm going to add another piece right below it. So it makes it look more intentional. You don't want just kind of one wispy piece, but if you have a few, it looks like you did it on purpose, which I did. So I'm going to do kind of that similar thing on the other side. This is already extended a bit, but I am going to add another long piece to really get that flowy feel. And then I've got one more pretty piece that will look gorgeous draped, so I'm going to do that as well. Like that. So there we go. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be symmetrical. It's going to look gorgeous. So I've got like one little guy that's left over. This would be perfect for little napkin garnishes as well. But definitely look on the floor at this moment and see if you have any of this perfect little cedar, because these are going to be great for your table. So I'll stop talking about napkin garnishes. The next thing we're going to grab is our white kale. Our white kale, similar to mini green or any other flower, you're going to strip those low-lying leaves. So anything that looks a little sad, a little brown, or damaged, you're going to just go ahead and take those off. These are pretty tiny kale. Sometimes they're massive. These are just going to be like the perfect other little accent to fill your gaps. And they kind of balance out the color of the mini green with the greenery. So we're going to take this sharp angled cut and we're going to insert these throughout. So we have 3, so we're going to scatter them like we scattered our mini green, but a little more asymmetrically. So I'm going to go in with probably 1 on this side, and I'm going to do 2 on the side that I'm looking at. So since I've got this right here, I don't want to stick them right next to each other like that. I want to make it look intentionally placed. So I'm going to go a little high with this one. A little high there. Perfect. And then I'm going to do one that's low over here. And then on the opposite side, I'm going to go a little bit more central right there. So that's how I'm mapping mine out. Obviously, you can choose wherever you want to place them. But I would just say my only advice is if you have a mini green right there, don't bundle them both up right with the mini green. You want to have them look intentional. So I've got my high one there, and then I'm gonna go low over here. And this is another perfect thing where if you have a big gap, if you can still see a bunch of your foam, which hopefully we've gotten it pretty well covered by now with the greenery, but you're gonna go and grab your kale and you're gonna pop it right in because it's gonna fill the space perfectly. And then I said I was gonna go a little more central on this side, so I'm gonna go a little more central and kind of central height-wise as well. And with the kale, you can kind of fluff the leaves out and just be careful because the stems on those, they're hardy, but they do snap easily. So just be careful of that when you're putting it in there. And I also just realized that I have one more piece of magnolia and I have a couple damaged leaves on it. So I'm gonna pop those off. I can utilize that. These are also great as a napkin garnish. Last year I did magnolia leaves and I took a paint marker and wrote people's names on them and you put that on the plate or up near the water glass, and it is such a cute table idea. So also something you can use if you love that. Just forewarning, don't try to write on the brown side. It doesn't really work. So just do it on the green side. So I've got another piece of magnolia. I'm gonna stick that in on the end because I do like how extended I've gotten it size-wise. I like the length of it, so I'm gonna stick a couple pieces there. Make sure that's really inserted. There we go. Okay. Well, I need to take a second to look at everything. Okay, we've gotten our kale placed, and this one I'm gonna actually adjust just a little bit. There we go. I just wanted it a little more facing forward. So next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna grab for our red roses. And these are our freedom roses, which are perfect. We blow through these at the holidays like you would not believe. So with our roses, we're gonna kind of do groupings of 3, but honestly with long and low, you have a little more free reign. So don't have to cram them all together because we have a lot more space to fill. So I'm gonna start with one right down here, one red. And like we do in other arrangements, we wanna kind of give that varying depth. So if you've got one that's really far in, one that's out, and then one that's a little more in, it looks really nice and adds a little more dimension. So take off those low-lying leaves on the stem. You're taking off any of those guard petals. Anything that's damaged, remove it. You can blow on the center of it if it's really closed up and you want to open it a little more. You're welcome to do that. That's a little trick. And I'm going to group this one right with the one I just put in, but I'm going to have it sticking out a little further. So it looks a little just more interesting rather than having everything on the same plane. So same thing with every single rose. I'm actually going to go ahead and clean all of these right now so they're all ready for me to place. So sometimes it's helpful to do all the tedious rose prepping before. So a lot of these don't really have thorns, but do be mindful. If you're stripping with your hand, be sure that there's not thorns. So make sure you look before you do that. Take off any of those, guard petals. All the low-lying leaves. Take that off. It's nice when your roses don't have thorns. You get pricked often during the day. So same thing, taking off all of these petals. Oops. And so I've got 2 reds placed. I have, got a pink up here. I don't know how that ended up there. Got 2, 4, 6 reds. So I've got 2 there. I'm gonna place 2 back here opposite them. And I'm facing them out all at kind of different angles. So this one I'm facing that way. You don't want everything to look exactly head on and exactly head on this way. You've also got to think of how your guests are sitting around your centerpiece. especially if you have people seated on the end and this is going in the middle of your dining table. You want to make sure that you're adding something to the ends. So the ends aren't just bare greenery and just these sides have flowers. So be mindful of that as you're designing. So I've got this one low and I'm going to do another little grouping. So I'll do one right there. And then I've got two other reds. And so since I just said something about the ends, I am going to pop these actually in on the end. So see how someone would be sitting at the dinner table at the end and be like, I'm just looking at bare greens. So I'm going to pop one in right there. So it gives it more of a full look. So you really can see flowers from all sides. You don't have to do that, especially if you don't have guests on the end, but I also think it elongates it quite nicely. So if you are going for that longer look, definitely include some of your roses on the ends. See, so I've got that one there so they can see something. That's just a nice touch. So sharp cuts. And then we're going to go in with our pink roses, and our pink roses, we're going to scatter throughout. We've only got 3, so just kind of wherever your eye is telling you there's a giant hole, then put one there. So I had a giant hole right here that seemed really dark. I put a pink one right there. And then I've kind of got the same situation on this side where I have a really dark spot. So I'm going to tuck one right up near this kale. And again, you want to keep your stems short like the vase, but not too short where they're not going to stay in the foam, because it's really important that they're really well inserted into the foam. So we've got that, which actually is a little bit too much on the exact same plane as my red, so I'm going to move that a little bit up. There we go. And see how I tucked that in? So the red is a little more protruding, and this one's a little more in deeper. It just gives it more variation and depth. So we've got one more, and I have this. So again, you're doing it about the same. Your stems are about the same height as your vase. I have this one gaping dark hole right here, so I'm going to use this pink one over there. Okay, next thing we're going to go for are our spray roses. These are our Gem Star sprays, perfect hot pink. We love the hot pink and like unexpected accents for the holidays. I feel like pink should be a Christmas color, as you can see by my sweater, but I think it goes so well with the red and green, and it makes it just look a little more modern. So with the spray roses, these are a little tedious because you do have to remove these guard petals on every single bloom. Sometimes you don't really need to if they look okay, but just look at everything and make sure that they look not damaged. And then I'm going to kind of tuck this first one up near my red roses to kind of give that balance. So I've got that there. And we've got 3 of these. And when they're really leggy like this, you can split these off and use them in multiple places. So this one I'm going to use in 2 different places. So I'm going to cut these. One, I'm going to cut this one, and I'm going to cut this little guy. So now instead of 1, I just made it into 2. So we can use it in 2 different places. So same thing with these. Make sure you're taking off any of the damaged guard petals, and then any of the low-lying leaves. Sharp angled cut, and then you're going to insert those in a gap in your arrangement. So I've got this next one tucked right there. I have my first one over here. And now since I separated these 3, I've got 3 that I can use in a little cluster elsewhere. So I've got one there, and now I'm going to have an extra because I just split it like that. But this I'm going to go up top because when I'm looking at it from above, the little bear right there. And then I've got my last one, and I'm probably going to do it right here near that magnolia. So same as your roses, you're stripping all the low-lying leaves. And all the guard petals. And then a nice sharp cut, again, similar height to your base. And when I say that, I mean like that. And I thought I would do it there, but actually, I actually think I'm going to stick it down here near this red rose. This needs a little more floral element. Okay. And now we're going to go in with our berries. So these are our red Hypericum berries. And these are such a fun little Christmas accent. We don't see these, you don't see these around Helen Olivia a lot other than Christmas. These are the perfect little accent to pop in if you have a big gap. So, and these are a great element for texture. I've got my first one here. My next one, just look and see where you feel like you are missing an element. I've kind of got this hole between these sprays and that, so I'm going to stick my second one there. And we should have 3 or 4. And you can go a little wilder with the height if that's what you like. I'm going to keep it a little tame, but I've already gone a little wild with the greenery. And if you have any where the berries are bent, just pull that little berry off. You don't have to pull the whole thing off. And same with the roses. You're going to strip these of their leaves. And then you're going to make your sharp cut around the same length as your base. And then I've got one here, one here, one here. So I'm going to go with one on this back corner right there. So when you're putting anything close to the vase line, make sure you're not sticking it straight across because it might cut through the foam and pop out. Make sure you're pointing it down. So got that one in. Love the placement of those. Next thing we're going to grab for are our ranunculus. Our ranunculus are a little bit tricky to put in foam. So you're going to pull off any low-lying anything, and then you're going to make a sharp cut, and you're going to keep it relatively short because these can be really, really hard to get in because these stems really like to bend. So as soon as they hit foam, sometimes they will snap. So you're going to make a sharp cut. See how sharp I've got that angled? And then I'm going to pop these in right at the top. You want to make sure that this whole surface area of the cut you made is in the water source, so in the foam. So I've got it placed right there. And then I have one more. And again, really sharp cut, but you want to make sure that you're not cutting it too short where you can't get that full surface area in there. So the next one I'm going to place right there. Okay. So now we're going to grab for our thistle, and we love this little blue accent during the holiday season, especially. I love it year round, but this blue just feels so wintry and perfect for this. So for something like this and a foam, a floral foam arrangement, I'm going to cut this into 4 pieces because we don't need this long stem for this foam. So you're going to, for thistle, you can cut it like that, and then you've got this last one, and you're going to keep that middle one intact so you can use that middle stem for the middle piece. So then when I've gotten them cut like this, I'm not going to just dot these around on their own. I'm going to place them in 2s or 3s. So I'm going to do them in 2s. I've got 1, I've got 2, and these are just a fun little texture that you can definitely leave these stems a little longer if you like how that looks, and float them above everything. See how fun that is? Just a little bit of a wild element because they are like a little wildflower. So same thing here. I'm splitting that into 4. I just prefer that. You can use the pieces like this and take this off and use these 2 together. But honestly, it's a little long in the foam, so it just gives you more options for the thistle if you're cutting them separately. So now I've got 7 little pieces of thistle that I can utilize. So I'm going to just scatter those around. And same as before, I'm kind of leaving them a little long so it gives kind of a fun element. And you're just going to make fresh cuts on all of them. And I would like a little blue accent right there by my mini green. And again, like I said, I'm doing in little pairs of 2, so they're not just flying solo. You can definitely leave them as just one, but it sometimes looks nicer to pair it with something, even if it's not right next to each other. So these 2 are kind of close. And then I've got one more, and I'm going to pop that in there. Here we go. The last thing we have for you today is our pine cones. So the pine cones basically are just our perfect little winter accent. And they're on a little stake, so you can just stick them right in. And right away I see a couple gaps that I have that are just kind of asking for a little accent of something. So put them right in there. So I've got one here, and then I'm going to try to go low with one because I don't want them all sitting right on the top. So I've got one there, and then I'm going to go one, which actually I have a piece of thistle right there. I'm going to swap that. So I'm going to put one pine cone low right here. Make sure you're getting that to stick into the floral foam so it doesn't go anywhere. So there, and then I'll move this little thistle here. And that is the finished product. So we're all done with the centerpiece class, and I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you have a very happy holidays. With floral foam and caring for this arrangement, we want it to last definitely until Christmas and beyond. So because it's in foam, you just want to add water on top. A trick I like to do is add fresh water. You want to add fresh water each day because the foam will just start to dry up. The water will evaporate and the stems will be drinking the water from the water source. So it does dry out a little more quickly than a typical arrangement in fresh water. So just add fresh water every day. A good thing for this would be to grab like a little pitcher or a little measuring cup or something small, like a little glass. Or a turkey baster and get fresh water in it and really insert it into any holes and fill the foam until you almost can feel that water might be coming out on the sides. You can lay it on a kitchen towel while you're doing that to make sure that there's no spillage, but you definitely want to add fresh water each day and keep it really healthy, and it should last long for you and definitely through the holidays. I hope you enjoyed this class. Thank you again for joining us for the virtual workshops, and we hope you have a Merry Christmas and a very Happy New Year. We'll see you in the new year. Thank you so much.